You've probably heard it 100 times in the gym. If you're not training to failure, you're leaving gains on the table. And maybe you believed it. Maybe you've ground out rep after rep, shaking, grinding, absolutely torching yourself on every single set. Because that's what the hard guys do, right? But here's the thing. The science on training to failure is way more nuanced than your gym bro is letting on. And getting this wrong isn't just costing you gains, it might actually be holding you back. Today, we're breaking down exactly what the research says about training to failure. What it is, when it helps, when it hurts, and what intermediate lifters like you should actually be doing. Let's get into it. Before we dig into the research, let's make sure we're on the same page about what failure actually means, because there are different types, and they're not equal. Absolute muscular failure is when you physically cannot complete another rep with good form. Your muscles give out. The bar stops moving. Done. Technical failure is slightly different. It's the point where your form starts to break down, even if you could grind out one or two more ugly reps. Most researchers study absolute failure, but in the real world, technical failure is probably the smarter stopping point, especially for compound lifts like squats and deadlifts where a breakdown in form can mean an injury. Then there's a concept called reps in reserve, or RIR. If you stop a set with 3 reps in reserve, you could have done 3 more before hitting failure. This scale is how most modern research measures proximity to failure, and it's going to come up a lot today. Okay, so why do so many people swear by training to failure? It's not just gym culture, there is real science behind it. The core argument is this: the closer you get to failure, the more muscle fibers you recruit. Your body is efficient. It doesn't want to use more muscle than it has to. As a set gets harder and your fatigued fibers drop out, your nervous system starts pulling in fresh, higher threshold motor units, including the fast-twitch fibers that have the most growth potential. A 2021 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that training to failure did produce slightly greater hypertrophy compared to not training to failure when volume was equated. Meaning, if you do the same number of sets, going to failure edges out, stopping short. Research from Brad Schoenfeld and others also supports the idea that mechanical tension, the main driver of muscle growth, is maximized in those last few hard reps close to failure. The reps that feel easy at the start of a set, they're contributing less than you think. So yes, there is a real physiological case for pushing close to or all the way to failure. But here's where it gets complicated. Training to failure has a cost, and for intermediate lifters, that cost can outweigh the benefit if you're not careful. Problem 1. Fatigue accumulates fast. Failure training generates significantly more fatigue than stopping 1 to 3 reps short. And fatigue doesn't just affect your next set, it affects your next workout, and potentially your whole week. A 2022 study from the European Journal of Sports Science found that subjects who trained to failure needed significantly longer recovery times, and showed greater performance decrements in subsequent sessions. If your Monday chest session wipes you out so badly that your Wednesday session is half effort, you've probably done more harm than good overall. Problem 2. Injury risk goes up. This one's pretty intuitive. When you're grinding through the last rep of a heavy compound movement, form is breaking down, stabilizers are fatigued, the risk of something going wrong increases. For isolation, exercises like curls or lateral raises, failure is relatively low risk. For a heavy squat or overhead press, much higher stakes. Problem 3. It's hard to sustain. Going to failure on every set of every workout is brutal. Mentally and physically, research shows that athletes who consistently train to failure report higher rates of burnout and overtraining symptoms. And a training program you can't stick to long-term is a bad training program, period. So, where does that leave us? Is failure good or bad? The honest answer is, it depends on the exercise, the rep range, and where you are in your program. 1. You don't need to train to failure to maximize hypertrophy. A landmark study by Ralston and colleagues found that stopping slightly short of failure produced similar muscle growth to going all the way to failure, with significantly less fatigue. This has been replicated in multiple studies since. The takeaway: getting close to failure matters. Actually hitting failure, not so much. Proximity to failure matters more than reaching it. Think of it this way: the last 5 reps before failure are the most productive. Whether you stop at rep 10 or grind to rep 12, you're getting most of the stimulus either way. The question is whether those last 2 reps are worth the extra fatigue cost. 1. Exercise selection changes everything. The research generally supports a tiered approach. Compound lifts, squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows. Stop 2 to 3 reps short of failure. The fatigue and injury risk aren't worth it. Isolation exercises. Curls, lateral raises, leg extensions. You can push closer to, or all the way to failure. Lower fatigue, lower risk, and the recruitment argument is stronger here. 1. Failure has a place, but strategically. Some coaches and researchers recommend using occasional failure sets as a tool, not a default. For example, a final set of an isolation exercise, or a planned push week in a periodized program. Used intentionally, failure training can provide a novel stimulus. Used constantly, it just digs you into a fatigue hole. Alright, let's make this practical. If you're an intermediate lifter, you've been training seriously for at least a year, you know your lifts, you're past the beginner gains phase, here's how to apply this. Rule 1, default to 1-3 RIR on most sets. On your working sets, aim to stop when you feel like you have 1 to 3 reps left in the tank. This keeps you in the high stimulus zone without burying yourself in fatigue. Your performance stays high across sets, across sessions, and across the week. Rule 2. Push closer to failure on isolation work. Your last set of cable curls? Push it. Lateral raises? Go for it. The fatigue is manageable and the muscle recruitment benefits are real. This is where getting to or near failure actually makes sense consistently. Rule 3. Use failure sparingly on compounds. If you want to test your limits on a heavy set of bench press or squats, do it occasionally with a spotter on a day when you're fresh. Don't make it your default approach on big movements. Rule 4. Track your RIR honestly. Most people overestimate how many reps they have left. If you think you have 4 reps in reserve, you probably have 2. A good way to calibrate is to occasionally push a set to failure on a safe exercise and see how far off your estimate was. Over time, you'll get much better at reading your own body. Rule 5. Let fatigue management guide your program. If you're constantly sore, your performance is declining week over week, and you're dreading the gym, you're probably overdoing the failure training. Pull back, recover, and you'll grow more in the long run. Here's the bottom line. Training to failure isn't a magic bullet, and it's not the enemy either. It's a tool, and like any tool, it works best when you use it in the right situation, at the right time, for the right job. The science is pretty clear. Getting close to failure is what drives muscle growth. You don't need to cross the finish line every single set to build serious muscle. In fact, if you're doing that on everything, you're probably leaving gains on the table through accumulated fatigue and poor recovery. Train smart, manage your fatigue, push hard on the right exercises, and let the research guide you, not the guy yelling at you across the gym floor. That's what we do here at Muscle Mechanics. If this video helped you, subscribe. We break down the science of muscle building every week so you can stop guessing and start growing. Drop a comment below and let me know, do you train to failure? I want to hear how you approach it. See you in the next one.